All right, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks to the conference for accepting our paper. It is such a great honor for me to stand before this amazing community. So my name is Jack, and I'm a PhD student in operations management and statistics at Rockland Management University of Toronto. So today I'm going to talk about my work on the implications of overjoin classification in on-demand economy. And this is a joint work with my advisor, Ming, also from Toronto, and Professor Jianfu Wang from City University of Hong Kong. So this paper is really about a policy question that people have been frequently talking about over the past 2 to 3 years. So let me back up a little bit and talk about our motivations. So in the last decade, we have this amazing, astounding expansion of on-demand economy, gig economy, and the so-called online labor markets. So workers like Uber drivers, food deliverers on those platforms, Uber, DoorDash, or we call them gig workers, they have tons of flexibility in their work schedule. They can now decide by themselves when to start to work, when to stop, which platform to work, hop on totally by themselves. So because of such flexibility, by now this largely reclassified and treated as independent contractors rather than employees. And that has 2 implications. Well, first of all, most of them are compensated on per piece basis, meaning that they will only get compensated when they are helping the platform fulfill jobs. They will not guarantee any compensation at the time. It's just spent idling on that, waiting for a job. And the second thing is that they will not they will not be entitled to any employee benefits, like leave, health insurances, unemployment insurances. So the second issue is particularly controversial because on the one hand, in many countries, for example, like in the States, people have to buy their own insurances, buy their own benefits. So workers can end up with pretty low earning rates. But on the other hand, platforms save tons of money. And that, in some way contributes to this exponential growth over time. So you can see that the situation is quite dire here, and this tension definitely raised the eyebrows of regulators. So over the years, policymakers have been pushing very hard to reclassify all gig workers as employees and make sure they will get complete employee benefits. And the most famous example is this California Assembly Bill number 5, which was signed into law in 2019, but later on kind of pushed back by Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash. Now, alternatively, people in the UK come up with something in between contractors and employees, they call it workers, and we will term it here as contractors plus. So essentially, workers will still be treated as independent contractors, but at the same time, the company will provide them some employee benefits, in the sense that they will get benefits proportional to the time they're fulfilling a job on the platform. There's no guarantee they will get compensated for the time they're waiting for a job. Okay. So we will turn uniform employee emails plus no uniform classifications, because if you look into those regulations, they basically just apply to all gig workers. However, gig workers are, of course, quite different from each other. Some of the workers, we call them part-timers, they have their full-time jobs elsewhere. They come to the platform to do gigs only to earn supplemental incomes. So for this group of people, the flexibility is arguably bringing them benefits, because they can get benefits anywhere else anyway. But there are also some gig workers. They do gigs to earn their primary resources, and we call them full-timers. Losing the benefits can put their welfare at stake. So in this paper, we choose to focus on the welfare of full-timers. So borrowing the notion from Bobby's talk, of course, the service provided by the full-timers, part-timers are similar, right? They have similar amount of flexibility in their work schedule. But still, you can see the first group of people, the amount of labor input is huge, right? They invest way more time and efforts on those platforms than their part-time counterparts. So they have worked as hard as employees, but still treated as independent contractors. So that's why we think their welfare is imperative. So the welfare issue of full-timers is imperative. And in this paper, we're trying to reflect on, can full-timers themselves really get better off when all gig workers are uniformly reclassified either as employees or as contractors plus, And what are the issues with the current regulations? And by considering the difference between these two types of workers, can we come up with something that would be more efficient than current regulations? So for the interest of time, I'll just skip the details on literature, and let me just jump into our model. So I'll start with how we think about how we formulate the status quo of contractor. So we have an on-demand service platform operating over multiple time periods. And in each time period, the platform will set a piece rate wage and allow workers to choose by themselves whether to work or not. We have two types of workers, part-timers and full-timers. Part-timers, they have their full-time jobs elsewhere, and they will only be available for the platform in a few number of time periods. Full-timers means that they will be available in any time period, but to have that availability firsthand, they will have to choose whether to work on the platform in the long run or instead taking a 9-to-5 job. Now, let me add a quick note here. For now, in this paper, we'll treat the population of part-timers and full-timers as exogenous. Okay, of course, in reality, people may, give up their full-time jobs elsewhere and becomes a full-timer on the platform, or full-timer become part-time. But for now, yeah, we just keep them as exogenous. So you can think of part-timers as those people in the society who are pretty happy with their full-time jobs now, okay, and they will only come to that for now. But full-timers are those people maybe who recently just lose their jobs and then they in this kind of transition period looking for another job, but they are just doing this gig work right now. Okay. So basically, the status quo of contractor mode will operate at this three-stage games. In the first stage, platform announce wages, and then full-timers, those who would be full-timers, will think about whether to commit to the platform or instead pick a 9-to-5 job. And finally, in any time periods, committed full-timers and available part-timers will come to the system and see whether to work on the platform. So let me give you a bit more details into each stage of the model. In that, starting with stage 2, okay? So part-timers, full-timers in time period, they come to the platform. If they choose to work on the platform, they will first join and wait in this virtual queue for consumer requests. So the time between any two consecutive requests is exponentially distributed, and it will be assigned to workers in the queue in a first come first manner. All will be lost if there is no worker available. So you can think of this part of the model as a one-sided queue. After getting the request, the worker will start the services immediately, and they will get this piece rate wage at the end, okay, after fulfilling the job. And then they will just go back to this to wait for new requests, on until the next time period starts. And if they are still available, they will decide again whether to keep working or not. Of course, in reality, workers can hop out of the platform at any time, right? They do have that flexibility, but empirical economic research on gig workers' behavior, they do show that once people choose to work, they will at least circulate on the system for 1 to 2 hours. All right. So workers' participation decision is based on the average earning rate on the platform for that time period against their opportunity cost. So as I said, gig workers in a status quo of contractor mode, they only get compensated when they are fulfilling a job. Okay, not for the time they are waiting for a job. So as you can imagine, as more and more workers join the system, right, each of them might spend more time waiting for a job rather than fulfilling a job. So in that case, their earning rate just goes down, right, and vice versa. So in equilibrium, workers will join the system if and only if their earning rate is higher than the opportunity cost. Okay, then let us move to the first stage, right? Full-timers think about whether to commit to the platform rather than picking 9-to-5 job. So at a high level, the good thing about being a full-time gig worker is that you have flexibility, right? You can, in any time period, you can choose whether to work or not. But the bad thing is your earning rates might fluctuate over time, and there is no guarantee you'll get any employee benefits. In contrast, 9-to-5 job gives you pretty steady earning rates over time, including employee benefits. But the bad thing is you have to work in any time. You have to follow the schedule set by your boss. Okay, then we go to the first stage that will optimize the profit with respect to the piece of wages in any time period. Just one note, in the baseline, we'll fix the service price just to keep things parsimonious, but we did do extension with the endogenous service price, and our key insights results just go through. Employee note, I'll just highlight 2 important things here. So first of all, the platform will now compensate workers on a per-time unit basis, meaning that once people work on the platform, they will get this earning rate including the employee benefits, both for the time they are fulfilling a job and for the time they're waiting for a job. And the second thing is that platform will now strictly control workers' schedule, in the sense that first it will decide how many employees to hire, and second, for each employee worker hired as employees, you have to work in any time period. And finally, contractor plus mode. So this is pretty much just contractor mode, but just one thing is that there will be a minimum wage for the piece or wage the platform can choose to pay. This is just to make sure that at the end of the day, workers will get that prorated employee benefits proportional to the time they are fulfilling a job. Okay, not necessarily for the time they are waiting for a job. All right, so our key result is that actually not only part-timers don't like the idea of being reclassified as employees, full-timers themselves can prefer to remain independent contractors. And a big part of the reason is actually that full-timers can benefit from a positive earning externality generated by the positive counterparts. So the intuition here is that, in the free market, if they are only full-timers, the platform's problem is just to make sure that full-timers have enough incentives to work on the platform in the long run. Right, so what the platform can do, it turns out its best strategy is to set a higher earning rate when the market is hot during peak periods, and set a lower earning rate when the market is down during off-peak periods. So over time, you can imagine things will balance out, right? And full-timers, they will just have enough incentive, but not more, to work on the platform. And they end up with a zero surplus. Now, when they are also part-timers, the platform also needs to think about their short-run incentive to hop on the platform. Right, after taking into consideration all those competition with full-timers and with part-timers themselves. So what will happen is that even when the market is down during off-peak periods, so long the market demand is now too low, the platform may still set a relatively higher limit. Okay? And this is how the financial incentive induced by part-timers can spill over and benefit their long-term full-time commitments and leave them with a positive service. Now, what happens when you reclassify all the workers as employees and contractor plus? Well, it turns out that full-timers may not always get better off. And as I just said, because full-timers sometimes can end up with a pocket amount of surplus in the free market, actually, both types of regulations can hurt full-timers, either when the benefit is very high or when the benefit is very low. So for the interest of time, okay, so here is just an illustration, and you can see the negative impacts at the two extremes. So for the interest of time, I'll just highlight what happens when the benefit is very high. So you see, when the benefit is very high, the platform's labor cost is pretty honest. So under in the email, the platform will just hire a very small number of full-timers as employees. And in the contractor plus mode, even though the platform may not directly control workers' schedule, right? May not directly control the workforce size, but they can still choose to shut down when during off-peak periods when market demand is low and the price is low. Right? So one way or another, you can see in both cases, there will only be a small number of workers ever joining the system. So you can imagine the total size of their welfare can be small, and actually smaller than that in the free market. Okay, so there are some issues with uniform classification. How about let's treat workers differently, right? Since they have different motivation to join the system in the first place. Let's say, for example, let's just treat full-timers as employees, right? And keep part-timers as independent contractors. Or alternatively, let's just treat everybody still as independent contractors. But operationally, let's prioritize dispatching full-timers over part-timers whenever there's a new consumer request. So we do have some closed-form solutions results showing you how these differentiated schemes might improve over uniform classification. But I want to highlight here is that we look into the Uber's market in California, and for 137 cities with active Uber operations, for each city, we calibrate the parameters with real-world data. And we'll predict market outcomes on the different classification scenarios and compare that with the status quo of contractor. So what you see here is that the green means positive impacts and the red means negative impacts. So if you make the pairwise comparison row by row, you can see that the two differentiated scheme that we propose, which is the column 3 and 4, generally improve over a uniform classification in a sense that not only full-timers, their welfare can get enhanced in most cities, but on the other hand, the negative impacts on other stakeholders, consumers, the platform itself, can moderate it. So with that, let me conclude my talk with the following takeaways. So how people should be classified? Well, there are definitely many other perspectives to think about this problem. But what we do is to distinguish between part-timers and full-timers and focus on the welfare of full-timers. So the free market, the status quo of contractor mode is not necessarily a bad thing. So regulators beware, your policy of reclassifying all gig workers as employees may not always work. Actually, sometimes it can backfire for full-timers. And we propose, two policy alternatives and show that by acknowledging the difference between different types of gig workers and design policies based on that can help us improve over the current regulations that we have seen. So thank you so much for your time and happy to take any questions and comments. Thank you.